If you're running your photography business from home, even part-time, there's a tax deduction you might be ignoring, and it could be worth thousands of dollars. So today, I want to break down the home office write-off for photographers. I'll explain exactly how it works, how to qualify, what you can deduct, and how to keep records so you don't get in trouble if the IRS ever comes knocking. You don't need a huge home or a fancy setup to qualify. If you're editing weddings from a spare bedroom, answering client emails in a home office nook, or even holding meetings at your kitchen table, there's a good chance you can write off part of your rent, your utilities, and more. My name is Travis Reynolds, and I am a CPA, and I help photography studio owners run more profitable studios. If you're new here, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's start with who qualifies for the home office deduction. To take this deduction, your home office has to meet two basic rules. It has to be used exclusively for business. It has to be your principal place of business. Exclusive use means that the space is only used for business. You can't work at your dining table and then use the same space for family dinners. That's not going to work. But if you've got a desk in the corner of your guest room that you only use for photo editing or emails and planning shoots, that one counts. Now let's talk about principal place of business. If you have a separate studio you rent, but you do all of your admin work, like editing, invoicing, client calls from your home office can still qualify. The IRS cares about where your business is managed from, not just where the photos are taken. A quick note though is that this deduction is for self-employed folks only. If you are a W-2 employee working for somebody else, this home office deduction will not apply to you. So let's say you qualify. How do you calculate the home office deduction? Well, there are two options. There is the simplified method or the actual expense method. The simplified method is exactly what it sounds like. You just take the square footage of your home office up to 300 square feet and multiply it by $5. So if your office is 200 square feet, that is a $1,000 deduction for you. No receipts or bills required. Easy peasy. The actual method takes a little bit more effort, but you can often give a much bigger deduction for it. So here's how this one works. Let's say your house is 1,500 square feet and your home office is 150 square feet. That's 10% of your home. So you can deduct 10% of your rent or your mortgage interest, 10% of your utilities, 10% of your insurance, and even 10% of general repairs and maintenance. If you pay $2,000 in rent and $300 in utilities every month, that's $2,300. 10% of that is $230. And then multiply that by 12 months and you're looking at a $2,760 deduction. That's already more than the simplified method would give you. On top of that, any direct expenses like repainting your office walls, buying a desk just for your editing suite, or putting a lock on the door can be written off 100% if they only benefit your home office. So if you spend $500 painting that room and $1,000 on new standing desk, that's another $1,500 fully deductible. These direct expenses are often overlooked, but they do add up fast. So let's put this in a real world example. Meet Marie. She's a wedding photographer who shoots on location but does all of her editing and admin work from a 150 square foot bedroom. Her whole house is 1,000 square feet, so that's 15% used for business. She pays $2,000 in rent and $300 in utilities each month. Using the actual expense method, she gets 15% of that, or $345 per month. That's over $4,000 a year in write-offs. Plus she repainted the room and bought a desk, so that's another $2,000 she can deduct. If she had used the simplified method, she only gets $750. So the actual method does take more work, but it's worth it when the numbers are bigger. But here's the catch. You cannot deduct more than your business earns. So if you only made $10,000 in your first year, you can't claim $12,000 in home office deductions. The deduction is capped at your net business income. But for most photographers doing steady work, this deduction is absolutely worth tracking. All right, now that we have that covered, how do we calculate the deduction? Let's talk about what qualifies as a deductible expense. Direct expenses are 100% deductible. These are things that only benefit the home office. A new light fixture for your office ceiling, that's a direct expense. A desk lamp you only use for editing, that's also a direct expense. Painting the walls in your studio space, another. Indirect expenses are shared household costs that is partially deducted. These include things like rent, mortgage interest, utilities, internet, home insurance, and general repairs. You calculate the percentage of your home that your home office occupies, and you apply that same percentage to each of those bills. Internet and utilities are especially important for photographers because of your uploads, your galleries, your client communication, and editing workflow rely on them. If your office is 20% of your home, you can deduct 20% of your internet bill, your electricity, your gas, and even your garbage bill. Now, one more overlooked area. Depreciation. If you own your home, you can depreciate the business use portion over time. It's a little more complex, and if you sell your home, there could be tax consequences, but for long-term business owners, it's absolutely worth considering. So talk to a CPA about this, especially if you've owned your home for a while and recently did some major renovations. All right, let's pause here because I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like a lot of tracking. And you're right, it is. But this is where staying organized can save you thousands of dollars in taxes. So here's what I recommend. First, measure your home office and your entire home and know the square footage. Next, keep receipts for anything related to your home office, such as paint, desks, even the portion of your electric bill that you use for your business. Then set up a spreadsheet or use accounting software to log all of your home-related expenses. Lastly, store photos or a simple diagram of your workspace in case the IRS ever comes knocking. And keep those records for at least 3 to 7 years because that is how long they have to audit you. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You could use a Google Sheet, you could scan receipts with your phone and dump them into a Dropbox folder. What matters is consistency. When you make this a monthly habit, it becomes part of your routine and saves you from a year-end headache. And look, I know you didn't get into photography to become a bookkeeper, but as I always say, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And these kind of deductions are one of the few times you get rewarded for doing the admin work, because every dollar you deduct is a dollar you're not paying taxes on. Photographers I work with are often surprised just how much this deduction can lower their tax bill, and yet many miss it completely because they're afraid of doing it wrong or don't want to deal with the paperwork. So here's my advice. If you qualify, use it. If you're unsure, get help. And if you're doing all of your admin work from a cramped corner in your house, you definitely shouldn't be overpaying the IRS just because no one told you how to take the home office deduction. And if you want more help with this is literally what I do. I help photographers set up a clean system, track their expenses, and keep more of their hard-earned money. You might also want to check out my video on quarterly estimated taxes if you haven't seen it yet, because that's the next step once you're profitable and organized. All right, so here's the recap. If your home office is used exclusively for business and is your principal place for admin work, or is where you meet with your clients, you probably qualify. You can calculate the deduction with a simplified flat rate or the actual expense method. Track direct and indirect expenses to stay organized and keep records. And remember, this deduction is legit, IRS approved, and built to help small businesses like yours succeed. If this was helpful, follow me for more if you want help figuring out your home office deduction. Leave a comment and I'll reach out. You deserve to run a more profitable studio, not a stressful one.